Hi, it's Jan Beta, and today we're going to take another closer look at the Foenix F256K I inspected in the previous video. We are going to focus on the 1591 3.5-inch floppy disk drive that comes with the system, and we are also going to look at some more sophisticated software that is available. In the previous video I talked about the Foenix F256K, which is this newly produced retro style system that uses 8-bit processors, all kinds of modern quirks, but basically rooted in the design choices that the retro computers from the 80s and 90s made, just with kind of a modern twist, and in this beautiful case with a nice clicky modern keyboard here. And the FNX1591 is the floppy disk drive that is available for the system. This is a separate order, obviously, but this is quite interesting in that it is a kind of a modern take on the Commodore 1581, which was Commodore's 3.5-inch floppy disk drive for the older Commodore systems like the Commodore 64, 128, Commodore 16. You could also use it on the VIC-20, I think, because all of those systems have the IEC bus. That's the bus that has these little DIN connectors. So we're going to take an in-depth look at this in the first part of the video and try to make it work. I'm also going to try it on a Commodore 64, I think. And then we're going to take a look at some software that is in development or already developed for the F256K. And obviously this is a really new system, so there's not a lot of software yet that is completely finished, but there are some really promising things. And in the Foenix Retro Systems Discord, there are some developers that are really cool and are making super fun stuff at this very moment. So there's lots of things that are being worked on for this. And also there is the F256 Junior, which is the board-only version of this computer, but it is very much compatible with this. There are some slight differences in the sound chips that they use, but the programming is very compatible. So there are games for the Junior that should also run no problems whatsoever on this machine. I'm going to take a look at that in the second part. But first, let's focus on the drive. Before I even try this, I want to take a quick look inside and open this up to see what we got here. There seem to be 4 screws. These are hex screws, actually. I think there are some nuts on the other side, so this is going to be fun. Maybe this is just clipped together and these are just holding the circuit board. Ah, there's screws here, okay. There we go. Now it lifts off. Nice brass inserts here for the screws in the back. There's also screws to hold the disk drive in, which is a generic slim 3.5-inch floppy disk drive, I think. They probably are still manufactured, I would guess. Like for the kind of USB laptop disk drive you still can get as new. I think that's one of those. So now we should be able to lift this up. Oh yeah, there's our full circuit board. And the screws on the bottom are really just to hold the circuit board in place. And this is what's in here. There's an FPGA here, which is a Trion T80-144. I think this implements all the stuff that is usually in Commodore drives, like a CPU, 6502 usually, and 6522 I/O chips. And this is a WD1770, which is a generic disk drive controller. I think this is the thing that communicates with the disk drive itself, and then the Commodore stuff to make this compatible with the 1581 is in here. And this should be a little flash chip, I believe, or no, maybe this is RAM. The Commodore drives usually have RAM. And some logic here, oscillator for timing everything. And we have this assembly here which holds the LEDs, which is connected through this ribbon cable. So yeah, not a lot to see here. Most of the magic is happening in this chip, I believe, which is probably emulating. It's not really emulation because it's hardware level coding on these FPGAs, so it should be a very exact replica of the circuitry that's in a 1581, I believe. And then the disk drive controller chip that actually does the communication, so translates, so to say, the signals that come from the regular circuitry here. And we have a power switch, we have our power socket here, we have a little USB controller and our USB port here to program the ROMs in here, and we have our IEC bus DIN connectors. Not much to see. Let's reassemble and give this a spin. Let me take a couple of seconds to thank the sponsor for this video, PCBWay, my favorite manufacturer of prototype PCBs of all kinds. They also do CNC machining, 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication. They can populate your boards. They are very friendly people to work with and their prices are super reasonable, so I highly recommend checking out the link in the video description. Back to the Foenix. It's a very nice compact design here. I really appreciate that. And the case, just like with the computer portion, is resin printed, so it's really high quality. Basically feels like a mass-produced product, which it clearly isn't, because this is just a small-scale operation. So it's back together. Hope it still works. So in order to make this work, we are going to have to flash this with a kernel ROM. And we can use all the ROMs for the 1581 that are available. The drive doesn't come with a ROM for copyright reasons. Obviously, the Commodore ROMs are still copyrighted. So Stephany, who makes these, is not willing to take the risk of shipping these with a ROM pre-installed. It's pretty easy. We're going to walk through the process. And there is actually a way to get a 1581 ROM that is super compatible and even better than the Commodore ROM, really. The JiffyDOS ROM is still available commercially. So we're going to buy a kernel ROM, flash it on here, and then go from there and see if this thing actually works. This is available from the Foenix shop, c256phoenix.com, for $275, which is kind of a high price point, but it is hand assembled, every single one of these. And watching the prices for a real 1581, this is kind of cheap, I guess. You can join the waitlist, and typical lead time 4 to 6 weeks. Stephany is making these to order in batches, so there's some wait time for this, but you are able to buy this. You are going to be able to buy this. There's a waitlist and you're getting an email as soon as these are available again. So we need a little tool from this page that you find under support, FNX1591 installation, and there's a tool available, that's the FNX1591 uploader. We also need to install some USB drivers on our system here, and as you can see, this has the CPU 6502, which is on the FPGA, and the CAAs, the 1581 actually uses 8520, which is an updated version of the 6522 or 6526, the CAAs and VIAs in the older drives, and the 8520 is actually the one that is also used in the Amigas commonly. So that's just an updated version of the 6522 VIA in the end, which runs at higher clock speeds and things like that. And it has 8K of SRAM and 512K of flash. So the flash is where we want to upload our kernel ROM. This supports 16 kernel ROMs in the flash, so there's plenty of room. I don't think there's that many kernels available for the 1581, but there might be a ROM that is specially developed for this one, which then, if it ever comes through, will be shipped with this drive. Stephany is working on that, I think. We're going to install the uploader thingy, which is basically just an executable. Just extracting our executable, and we need to install a little driver for the USB chip that's on here. Stephany provides a little video on the support page here, where everything is explained in more detail, flashing the firmware, because that's, as I said, you need to do that in order to make the drive work at all. I'm not going to go through this. You can watch the full video, it's 22 minutes, but there's links to all the stuff you need. There's the JiffyDOS license. I'm going to put these links in the description for this video as well. There's the drivers for the little USB chip linked here that we're going to have to download, XR21B1411. So we're going to download these. So this is the little USB chip that's in here, and it's also the same USB chip used in the Foenix F256K computer. So we're going to have to download this driver once only. The flashing software is only available for Windows, I believe, at this point. So this is our little driver bundle, and we can probably install this in somewhere. Install. Okay. Need to have the INF setup information. I'm not a very good Windows user, primarily use Mac OS. So we should have the driver on here now. You don't need to install the firmware tool, that's just an executable you can put wherever you want on your system. And obviously we also need JiffyDOS. We can buy a license for that from Go4Retro. And it's $8 US, so it's not hilariously expensive and totally worth it. Add to cart. Oh, we can just use PayPal. I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to buy this. I'm not going to show you my PayPal credentials, but trust me, I'm just going to spend $8 for this. Complete order. So and I should be able to download this now. Go to downloads. There we are. That's our ROM image. So that's how easy it is. Now we have a ROM image, and you can actually find Commodore ROMs online, but I'm not going to show you where to find them. You are going to have to use your search engine skills for that. I'm not going down that route because, as I said, the Commodore ROMs are still copyrighted. So I'm not going to show you where to get that because that would be piracy. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into flashing this thing now. We should have everything we need. So we're going to have to power this on. We're going to have to connect it to our laptop here and run the software, I think. So we're going to power this on. This uses the same 12-volt center positive power supply that the Foenix computer uses. Just going to find myself a USB port. I'm going to start the software. And this is how easy the software is. So we can now click on this connect button. Now it says disconnect because I already did that. It's choosing the correct COM port. And we are just going to select a block on here, block 0. That's going to be our JiffyDOS. I put these files, I also found a 1581 ROM. I'm going to send these to the chip. Yep, I want to flash my FNX1591. System reset. There we go. Okay, and we're going to flash our 1581 ROM into slot 1. So we have both on there. The JiffyDOS ROM should be absolutely fine though. We're just going to use that. Yeah, and that should be all there's to it. We should now have a ROM on there. Disconnect, close the software, and that's how you flash this thing, I guess. We're going to find out if it actually works now. In order to select the ROM, we have this little sticker on the back here and this row of dip switches. So we can change the drive ID, which are switches 1 and 2 on here. This is the old Commodore numbering, so in case we want to hook this up to Commodore 64, we can just select the drive ID with these 2 dip switches here. And our kernel ROM that we're going to use is going to be kernel ROM 0. So everything on off for dip switches 5, 6, 7, 8. The dip switch position for the ROM also changes the activity LED color, which is kind of a nice feature. So we're going to have a white activity LED color for our JiffyDOS ROM. I'm using one of these standard drive cables for Commodore disk drives. This is a 6-pin DIN IEC cable. This actually came from a 1541 drive, I believe. And we can hook this up to either one of these. They are just connected in parallel in these drives. And that goes into the Foenix computer here. Let's see. Powering on the Foenix. Powering on the disk drive. We still have our SD card in here. And we can change the drive to this one, I think. Yeah, we should put a disk in there and see if we can format a disk with this. So opening up a fresh pack of Xerox data disks here. These are just new old stock 3.5-inch double density disks, which should be exactly what we need. This should also work fine with high density disks, because the disk drive in here is a high density drive, I suppose, because that's the only ones that are available. So let's put this in here and see what we can do. So all the dip switches are now in 0 position off. So this should now be drive 8 here and hopefully drive 1 on the Foenix. Drive 1. Directory. Doesn't do anything in BASIC. Oh, it tries. Okay, we get something. It's actually accessing the disk. Let's go into DOS. We're going to change the drive letter to drive 1. Drive 1. And make file system beta JB. So this should now run on the JiffyDOS system, and we should be able to format this disk with this little command in the DOS kernel layer on the Foenix F256K. It's as easy as that. Let's hit return and see what it does. Ha! It's formatting the disk, I suppose. Let's see. Ah, the sound of a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive. This is pretty nostalgic. And obviously this takes as long as it takes. As long as a proper disk drive, which this actually is, takes to format a disk in Commodore format. This is actually formatting in Commodore format, so you can use the disk you formatted here on the C64 or other Commodore machines that support the IEC bus. Yeah, and that should be that. We should have a formatted disk now. Nice. So let's see if we can read the directory. Yep, we can. Let's go back into BASIC and see if we can address drive 1 from here as well. Yeah, and it's showing Jan Beta as the label. So we can, in theory, go to drive 0 again, which is our SD card. Load our little Jan program that I put in there. Which is just a very tiny little basic program I made in the last video. And we should be able to save this on drive 1. And the drive is spinning up, complete. Now we should have our Jan program on there. Yay! It works! Nice! So that's how you use this drive. And it seems to work flawlessly. We formatted a disk, we saved something. Let's see if we can load it off there. We're going to reset the system with the reset button. We're going... Oh, the drive does a reset as well. Nice. So, yeah, let's see. This should be our SD card. It's called Foenix. Okay, drive 1. Directory. Nice. Load. Jan. Yay, there's my program. Nice. And here's what it does. Not a very sophisticated basic program, but yeah, that's my basic programming skills. The next thing I want to try is to see if a genuine Commodore drive actually works on the Foenix, which it should, because it should be fully compatible with the Commodore IEC bus. So we should, in theory, be able to hook up a 1541 drive to this system and use it as the disk drive for the Foenix. Also, as an aside, these two devices just look quite magnificent next to each other. I like it. I hooked up a real 1541-2 now to our system, and it should probably work. Let's see. I'm going to turn on the drive. I have a random games disk here. None of the games are going to work on the Foenix, obviously, but we should be able to access the drive. Drive 1, directory. And indeed, we get our Gianna Sisters directory. Yeah, we can just access this as our disk drive here. And obviously none of the games is going to work. There's Gianna Sisters on here. File not found. Oh, it's case sensitive, I guess. Yep. And this drive also has JiffyDOS installed, so it is pretty fast. We don't have nothing here because it's not a Foenix basic program. But in theory, we should be able to format disks on this through the Foenix DOS and do everything we like. And also save our Foenix programs on a 5¼ floppy disk with the genuine Commodore drive here. So yeah, that's pretty neat. So we don't need the 1591 necessarily if we want real floppy disks, the real experience that we had back in the day. We can just use any Commodore drive on this as well. This is also set to device number 8, so it's 1 in the Foenix environment. These also have dip switches. The 1541-2 is pretty easy to set up as device ID 9, which should be 2 in the Foenix. And you can daisy chain these. All these drives have 2 DIN connectors for the IEC bus in the back, so you can just daisy chain multiple devices. So in theory we could just hook up both of these at the same time, set them to different drive IDs and access them from the Foenix or a Commodore system for that matter. But yeah, just wanted to quickly check this, if this is possible, and it is. So I got a Commodore 64 out that's also running JiffyDOS 6.01 that I also bought the ROM for, and I have connected it to the disk drive. Let's see how it fares with this disk drive. I'm using the disk I made previously on the Foenix computer. Just inserting this. Nothing changed settings-wise or anything like that. See if we can read the directory. And indeed we can. Yeah, this indeed seems to be a Commodore formatted disk. We have our label in uppercase. That means we can switch to upper and lowercase in the Commodore 64. And now we can read Jan Beta and the JB that we put there and our program name. Let's see if we can actually load that. File not found. Oh, okay, it's a sequential file that's indicated here where I move the cursor now. So it's not a program file, the file we saved on the Foenix. It's saved as a sequential file, which is like a standard text file basically. Probably. It's a basic program, so it's probably saved as a text file that we would be able to open from a Commodore 64 if we made a little program in BASIC to open that. But yeah, let's try and format this disk, I think, on the Commodore 64, which should be pretty easy in JiffyDOS. Just the @ symbol, N:, then the disk name. Let's just call it Jan this time, and A1 as the ID. Let's see. Yeah, it started. And this should be really quick, considering that there's JiffyDOS on both the computer and the disk drive. Okay, process is finished. Let's see our directory. Yay! And that's a lot of blocks free, actually, compared to the 664, I think, on a 5¼ floppy disk. Plenty of space for the Commodore 64. That's pretty cool, actually. Let's see if we can write a little program here and save that. Just for testing. So this is our little test program, my usual, and this should be device ID 8, as we said. Jan beta, comma 8. Yay! We saved our little basic program. Let's see if we can load it again. I'm just going to power cycle the C64. No strings attached. So let's see if we can run this. Yay! There we go. Sorry for the little overlay there. That's my upscaler that I used for testing purposes here. Yeah, that worked. Nice. 3.5-inch floppy disk drive that works flawlessly with the Commodore 64 and other Commodores. That's all I wanted to check here. Back to the Foenix, I guess. So I hooked back up the Foenix F256K and we should be able to read our disk that we just formatted on the C64. Let's see what that does. Yeah, there we go. Volume name is Jan. Our Jan beta program is also on there. Oh, okay, it's case sensitive, so the lowercase Commodore is uppercase for the Foenix, it seems. Yeah, there we go. That's loading our program. Can't list it because it's not in the same format as the Foenix basic programs, which, as we've seen, are sequential files, so text files basically. That does work both ways, which is nice. That's going to be useful both for the Foenix and for the Commodore machines I have. So I finally have a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive for my IEC Commodores, which is pretty nice. And as I said, the original 1581 that was built back in the day for the purpose is quite expensive. There are kits now which allow you to recreate a 1581 basically. But this is kind of neat, and it's also, I think it's very much worth the money. It seems expensive at first, but I don't think that you can get your own one for much cheaper, considering that this comes with a nice case already, and the disk drive, the actual mechanical drive in there, and everything neatly laid out, programmable kernels. So yeah, the final thing I want to show you in this video is some software that is being developed for the Foenix system at this moment. There's not a lot of finished software. There are a couple of basic demos and things like that, some machine code demos, but there's also some more sophisticated stuff being worked on as we speak, and that's some games that I want to take a look at. So let's see how that goes. In order to upload software directly into RAM on the Foenix computer, I had to download a Python script. That's the Foenix Manager. I'm going to link that in below. And we need to install some dependencies that Python script has. And I also downloaded some pre-release software for the Foenix that we are going to upload into the RAM directly and start it from the Foenix actually. It actually took some time to figure this out for me. So I'm not quite 100% sure I did it correctly, but we're going to see. I'm just going to turn on the Foenix, and I have my USB cable inserted in my laptop here, and I have the script, and I'm going to run it. We can make this machine boot from RAM directly, and we need to specify the serial port this uses, which is COM7 in this case. The target is the F256K. This also works for other Foenix computers that they made, and it's a binary file. Let's see. There we go. For some reason I don't get sound output, but this is a game in development. Match it. It's a simple columns-like game, I think. And yeah, it uses the joystick in either port. We just have to match 3 of the same. and they disappear. You probably know games of this type. It's like very similar to columns and things like that. Works beautifully. Scrolls smoothly, animation is smooth. So this is one example of what this system is going to be able to do in the hands of capable programmers. Not sure why we don't have sound output. This is supposed to be a game with SID sound playing, but I don't get any. I'm not sure. Maybe I set something up incorrectly, or this is a version that doesn't have the SID sound yet. I'm not sure which one I downloaded. This came from the Discord, the Foenix Retro Systems Discord, so there are a couple of things on there. Let's see if we can do something else here. So this is another game in development. Let's zoom in on the screen for a bit. Yeah, this is Witch Rules the Night. So we have a little witch that we control, and you can see there's three. The screen is split three ways. So this is going to be a 3-player game. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. And this is very early work in progress. So yeah, you can see there's a lot of sprites in here. And I can somewhat stun my enemies by hitting the fire button. I'm not sure. That's some software for the Foenix that's going to be available as soon as it's finished, I guess. Oh, okay, I just killed a witch. Let's see if we can kill another enemy. I'm the little witch on top there, by the way. Does this scroll both ways? Yes, it does. Yeah, there's quite a few things that are coming for this system. This is basically just a quick demonstration of that. So definitely worth staying tuned. I guess some of these games are going to be available on cartridge even. That's going to make the whole load process a lot easier than fiddling with Python scripts, which I'm not the best at, admittedly. Yeah, I think that's it for today. My second and probably not the last video about the Foenix F256K. This time focusing on the floppy disk drive and some of the games that are available. I'm sorry, usually these would have sound, I think, but my sound setup didn't quite work out. I think my speaker has, maybe the cable's broken or something, I'm not sure. We should have sound output from this, but it didn't play. Yeah, that's all I want to show you today. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon and on Ko-fi and on the YouTube channel memberships page and elsewhere. Very much appreciated. Hope to see you again on this channel sometime. I'm Jan Deta. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.